Has something mysterious ever happened to you? Something that you're just unable to rationalize in your head. Maybe you heard a sound while you were alone. Perhaps your pet was acting strangely when there was nothing there. Or maybe even you can swear that for a brief second you saw something at night. Now, were you a kid when this happened? I'm guessing, yeah, you probably were. And that's no coincidence. Being a child is truly a magical feeling that is just full of warmth and wonder, and it's a feeling that so many adults crave to feel again, even if it's only for a moment. Ironically, it's also the same time period that a lot of us have had the most fear-inducing experiences of our lives. And these experiences probably played a bigger hand in molding the person you are today than you might even know. So in the spirit of Halloween, I'd like to look back at these movies that made us and why the hell they were even so scary to begin with. Kind of like a little collective trauma therapy session. I mean, it is insane how much such a short time period of our lives is what ultimately determines the rest of it. Just about every other mental health issue can be attributed to your childhood. So purposely subjecting kids to nightmare fuel seems like a stupid thing to do. Or is it? From the moment we are born afraid, and rightfully so. Can you imagine getting plopped into a world that has already been around for millions of years, full of strange-looking objects and odd creatures, and your survival depends on understanding them? I mean, damn, I'd also poop my pants every day too. I can't even imagine what that's like. No one can. There are two truths in life. You can only be a kid once, and one piece is mid. Martin Luther King Jr. And when we stop being kids, we leave something behind. Somewhere along the way to becoming a fully functioning adult with responsibilities and consequences for not fulfilling those responsibilities, we are forced to become more in touch with reality, which requires us to throw away our fantasies. Actually, we pretty much Control-Alt-Delete our imagination. If you were to give me two action figures and tell me to play with them, I really wouldn't know what to do. I'd probably just look for the Made in China mark or study the way the hinges connect and how they made the toy. While my kid self would have already established their world, relationship, powers, and have a whole ass arc planned ahead to develop them. And this doesn't only apply to toys. Everyday objects that adults probably won't even notice get their own set of lore that only a child sees. They will truly believe with all their heart that as soon as they turn off the light, a demon will pop out of nowhere and chase them, or that the furnace is really a monster. It's silly when you look back on it now, but back then, these were life or death situations with real terror involved. And that's not a bad thing. Fear is our greatest weapon in navigating the world, and the more we feel it, the more we can navigate fear itself. So being terrorized with no actual stakes involved is actually a perfect environment for kids to grow in. And that's exactly what kids' horror media sets out to do. I think making a scary movie intended for kids is 10 times more challenging than creating a traditional horror film. It has to be spooky, but not traumatizing spooky, and that's a fine line to walk on. A lot of these Goosebumps episodes, for example, could be easily made into actual scary films, but instead of toning down the subject matter, they tone down the way it's presented. It could sometimes feel like a spoof of the genre. Actually, most of them play out like more of a mystery piece with an unfolding plot that could have been a lot scarier had they kept things more cryptic. Like, by the end, all of the questions have been answered, the monster has been defeated, and it somewhat puts the kids' imagination to rest. This is the biggest thing separating the kids' horror from the adult horror, because it really is the anticipation and the suspense of knowing something horrible is about to happen, but not sure what or how it will happen. For example, The Shining pretty much starts off by telling you the ending, and it only makes the events leading up to it even more unsettling. It's like, what if I told you that somewhere throughout this video is a random jump scare? I searched the internet for an hour trying to find the ugliest, most disturbing face, and it's going to pop up at any second. Now you're going to be holding your breath for the rest of this video. You're welcome. Also, if you noticed, I kind of lingered on that bit, which is another technique. Long takes that make you uncomfortable. My favorite Halloween movie growing up was Monster House, and it's honestly more comedy than scary, which is probably why my wimpy ass liked it so much.
DJ? You pee in bottles? What are you talking about? That one's your pee.
But there is one scene that really creeped me out, which is when Nevercracker dies on top of this kid. Like, bruh, I had no idea what was going on, but this shot was way too close, lasted way too long, and felt way too personal. It's the way it's shot from the perspective of the kid that really sells the scene. They do this a lot with low camera angles on adults. Really makes you feel like you're trapped on their lap and they refuse to let you go. Like, you know what I mean? But hey, capturing that childlike essence is a tough thing to do, and being a kids movie, it is important. You can tell when something was written to appeal to kids versus speak to them. There have been so many Goosebumps copycats over the years, but none of them really capture that same vibe R.L. Stine does. He knows how to play on fears that only kids would have, and the stories have their own lore that seem plausible as long as you don't think about it for too long. Kinda like something a kid would make up. And then there's Just Beyond, which was so obviously made to cash in on the holidays. Like they really sat in a room and said, what do kids like these days? My nephew was bumping that Little Nas X lately. And then you get this atrocity.
I know this one. Turn it up. I can whip my Porsche and ride it on the valley. You've been on the porch now.
Can't nobody tell me.
Are we cringing yet?
If you really want to write something from a kid's perspective, then the easiest way to do it is by portraying adults as oblivious idiots who are unreliable and too busy to be bothered with child business. I think feeling ignored is something a lot of kids can relate to. I mean, when I was a kid, I would always run away from my mom whenever she had to pass through the Halloween aisle. I would tell her, "Mom, please, don't make me go in there. Let's go around." No. Then I would just dip. But yeah, I would have rather gotten lost in the mall than walked past the scary faces and risked getting cursed or whatever the hell I made up to justify it. My mom was pretty pissed. And it's interesting, because usually in horror movies, kids are portrayed as having this sixth sense of paranormal awareness, and the adults are always like, "Why can't you just be normal?" But in these cases, it's the inverse. You get the child's perspective of the horror story.
I wish you were my daughter.
It's effective for both mediums. Adults feel an innate responsibility to look after children, and children want to make their parents proud. Both tickle our self-conscious. Also, they want to put the kid against the demon and let them win. Show them that sometimes you can face your fears and still be alright. This is a movie for kids after all. You can't have a everybody dies ending. It's more of a safe but not sound ending, leaving just enough space for the characters to learn their moral lesson. It's nice. These movies might have kept you up for 1 or 2 nights, but eventually you realize it's fake and that it's intended to creep you out. I mean, most kids probably knew what they were getting into when they watched it, so they won't think much of it in a week or 2. But sometimes, kids see things. Things which they will never forget, in places where they least expect it. Now, we are getting into the nightmare zone. I am convinced that no matter what, kids will always find something to be terrified about.
I don't have no balls here.
Where did they go?
I don't know.
Even if they avoid everything that gives them the jitters, there will always be something that for some reason sticks out to them. I'm a living testament to that. As I said, growing up, I was a real-life scaredy pants. I used to scorn the day Halloween was invented. I quit it when I was 8. I slept under the covers until I was 13. And the thing that caused me countless of sleepless nights was a little game called Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. Yeah, this colorful, cute cartoon game terrified me. I would always have nightmares of being trapped in a dark cave fighting off bats and being surrounded by those things that make that god-awful noise. That laugh every time they hit you still bothers me to this day. Funny enough, I now consider Wind Waker to be my favorite game ever made. But that's a video for another time. Takeaway here is that you really don't know what will terrify these kids. I suppose it's that wacky imagination of theirs filling in the details, and so they end up creating their own custom 40-fit gift-wrapped monster that will absolutely violate them, knowing all their buttons to press. So they really do it to themselves. All they need is a trigger for their imagination to start working. Anytime something random happens, even if it's not scary, it will still get stuck in their heads. Like, again, looking at The Shining, there's that guy in a dog costume. This just gets thrown in there with no context. Like, what does that even mean?
No one knows what it means, but it's provocative.
SpongeBob has always been the biggest culprit of this. The Halloween-themed episodes did nothing to me, but the random close-ups or moments where real-life objects made their way into the show always freaked me out. 2 episodes in particular were just really poop-inducing as a kid. I Had an Accident is the title of one of those episodes, and it will forever go down as one of the weirdest episodes of kids television to ever air. It starts with Patrick's death, which is really a video game, but it actually happens again in real life. This really sets the tone for the rest of the episode. SpongeBob gets too cocky going down the hill and shatters his precious square cheeks. He is then rushed to the hospital, and the doctor tells him he is lucky to even be alive and that he is one booty bruise away from ending up like this guy. Suddenly, the entirety of Bikini Bottom becomes this cheek-clapping hellhole. The first thing he sees when he leaves is the 7-mile spanking machine.
We finally got enough people for a 7-mile spanking machine! Ouch! Ouch! Ouch!
Okay, I'll stop the cap. This was hilarious then, and it still is now.
Is this where the line starts?
But the absurdity of it even happening is still a little unnerving. Like, this is some Beau is Afraid type scenario where everything in the outside world is just out to get you, and your worst anxieties come to life. So, SpongeBob locks himself in his house where it's safe, vowing to never leave. His friends realize that he's slowly losing his mind and try to convince SpongeBob to come out of his shell and enjoy the real world. Now, me being a timid kid growing up, this was the most relatable episode of SpongeBob. My friends always tried convincing me of going trick-or-treating, and I'd be like, nah, you guys go ahead. It's cold outside, so I'd probably catch a cold, and candy is overrated anyways. I suppose I just always understood the way of the world. Anyways, seeing my life story play out on screen, I was having a good time. That is until Patrick dresses as a gorilla to bait SpongeBob into saving Sandy.
Huh? If you're Patrick, then who's that?
What the hell? Who thought having 2 beloved kids characters stuffed in a sack and getting beat silly was a good idea? I mean, he's just using them like his playthings. This is brutal. Even SpongeBob says they deserved it for not listening to him, and he sits there for a good minute watching his friends be used and abused. Seriously, that actor in the gorilla costume was having a little too much fun. Eventually, against his better judgment, he goes outside, and what does he get for trying to help his friends? Torn apart. SpongeBob then realizes that nothing happening is making any sense, and the gorilla is like, oh yeah, what's with those eyes peering out the costume? It's so creepy. Anyways, he summons his zebra and rides off into the sunset. And if that's not enough, it zooms out to reveal a family reacting to the TV. Looking back, this episode brilliantly portrays the paranoia that follows a traumatic accident and how it can cripple your everyday life. And its message is more relevant than ever. People are really living like SpongeBob nowadays, working from home and perfectly fine with their money, food, and used napkins. But my kid self didn't know any of that. It just seemed like my favorite cartoon was having an aneurysm and went off script. I had a similar reaction to the other SpongeBob episode that scarred me. And if you made it this far into the video, I'm sure you're already familiar with this one. It plays out like your usual kids horror episode, nothing too crazy, but just as the show is starting to wrap up and they are tying all the loose ends, the most dastardly thing happens.
Wait! If that was you on the phone and you on the bus, then who was flickering the lights?
Nosferatu!
That's it? That's how they end the episode? What's an 8-year-old mind supposed to make of that? I'll tell you what I thought. I thought I had just witnessed a cursed episode, and this Nosferatu guy is some sort of entity living in the background of kids' television. It was the way they reacted to him that convinced me of this. They weren't fazed by his appearance. Quite the opposite. They give him a playful little finger shake as if he's their mentally ill friend or something. Like, Nosferatu, you know you're not supposed to be here. Also, I was watching this with my brother who is 2 years older than me, and he was just straight-faced the whole time. Like, yep, just another episode, as if we didn't just see the creepiest dude to exist. This led me to believe that Nosferatu only revealed himself to me. And in actuality, we saw 2 different endings that day. But why me? Am I now cursed? Am I going to die? And to make things worse, this was all during a sleepover, and I had to sleep that night in my cousin's dank basement. I'm telling you guys, I was convinced that was going to be my last night. I legit had made my peace and quietly went to bed ready to die, jumping at every creak or crack the house would make, thinking this is it. He is right behind me. Any moment now he will take my life away. But 1 hour passed, then 2 hours. And after what felt like an eternity, I had a realization. Did you ever notice the way beds are shaped? They look awfully similar to gravestones. Coincidence? I think not. So I came to the conclusion that whoever invented beds designed them in a way to trick the demons into thinking that we are dead and leaving us alone. It was the only explanation at the time for why I was still alive, so I spent the rest of the night trying to stay as still as possible, like a dead person. Now, taken, these are just 2 incidents out of hundreds of times I was scared silly. I could spend all day talking about all the kid shows that traumatized me, so I'm just going to have a rapid fire round. The walrus from Pingu, no explanation needed. The ghost in Arthur, the head sculpture from Art Attack, every episode of Mr. Meaty, or Courage the Cowardly Dog. Pigma from Star Fox Assault when he transforms. 9 the movie, Men in Black, the native people in King Kong, Two-Face, Morbius from the animated series, the aliens from Mars, that shadow creature in Bridge to Terabithia, very sad and very scary. Lavender Town, Coraline for making me feel things for that old lady.
Holy God, what are you showing me? Come on!
The bug under the guy's skin in The Mummy, and lastly, anything that was made pre-2000s. Seriously, a moment of silence for all the kids that grew up in the 80s and 90s. Everything seemed a lot darker back then. Kids' cartoons were just pure nightmare fuel, and the prosthetics were a whole different beast when it came to horror. These things were so much more visceral and real looking. It's like they were competing to see how over the top they can make a movie. All these CGI monsters look fake as hell, but I can easily imagine this guy existing in the real world. And the rigid movements of the puppets only added to the creepy factor. Man, practical effects will always trump CGI. I mean, just look at the 2 Witches movies. They were made 30 years apart, and the original still holds up. One makes me want to throw up in tinfoil and eat it, while the other looks like she'd be a solid 7 on a good day.
Oh my God, bro.
There's just a charm to practical effects that you lose with CGI. Although, I gotta give props to the remake for having a darker ending and not letting the children return to their human forms. They try to play it off like it's a happy ending, but the boy is literally aging as fast as a mouse, meaning he'll probably die of old age with his grandma, who's already dying since the start of the movie. It'll go over kids' heads, but I appreciate it when kid movies incorporate details that only adults would notice. It gives them a little taste of what it's like to explore mature themes that are usually too taboo to talk about with kids. Like, I just realized that at the end of Monster House, when Mr. Nevercracker arrives, he is driving the ambulance truck himself, and he comes out wearing a hospital gown. This guy broke out of the hospital and stole an ambulance truck. The urgency he must have felt to do that, and the fact that he was going to blow himself up to save the kids who are about to meet his housewife, show a side of this character that back then I never considered. He really devoted his life to protecting these kids that hate him. Never in a million years did I think that I would one day watch this movie and relate more to Nevercracker than the main characters. They honestly did such a great job of humanizing adults, especially during a time when they just seemed like a bunch of towering figures of authority, or even humanizing kids themselves. You know, just think about how kids are always watching shows where everything is happy and cheery and nothing bad ever happens, as if kids never get sad. I think most kids know when they are being talked down to and seek something more mature. That's partially why I liked anime so much. It actually showed blood. I even enjoyed slasher films. They were R-rated, so I felt cool watching them, and the gore made me squeamish, but it never haunted me. Also, I knew that at the end of the day, it's just a normal guy in a mask who can still be defeated. But when it came to ghosts and demons, I had no tolerance. There's just too much unknown about what they are or what they are capable of, and I didn't want to know. Other kids my age, however, thought differently. Those poor souls sought answers on the internet. If kids from the 80s and 90s had the crazy practical effects to traumatize them, then kids from the 2000s had the internet, which, in my opinion, is much worse.
This is how hairy my butt is right now.
Because at least back then, kids were getting scared in somewhat of a controlled environment. But here, it was the Wild West. There is no end to the amount of disturbing images you can find on the internet. The mid to late 2000s were truly the golden age of internet horror. From Slender Man to Momo to Jeff the Killer to Russian experiments, Ben Drowned, or even clickbait jump scares. Every kid growing up in the 2000s has experienced one of these. And them being on the internet made it 10 times scarier. It felt more personal, cause you weren't just watching whatever program was on TV. You most likely went down a rabbit hole that led to you clicking on a scary thumbnail. And the videos that covered these creepypastas were always presented as if they're actual documented events, which gave them a sense of authenticity, as if somewhere in the world this actually exists. But even worse was stumbling upon a video with no context or clue as to what's going on. Just pure nightmare fuel images that will live inside your mind forever. Honestly, these types of videos still scare me. They have such an unnerving, cursed energy to them. Internet horror feels like you're seeing something that you shouldn't. Like these are forbidden videos, hidden away from the world for a reason, and you're digging up old corpses by looking into them. Especially when you're a kid still learning about the world. And YouTubers quickly realize they can take advantage of kids' obsession with horror and have started entire careers out of it.
I believe that everything's okay.
Ghost hunting and demon possession videos get a ridiculous amount of views. Kids eat that shit up.
Move your eyes if I should drink this.
In fact, just doing research for this video, I discovered Pakistani ghost hunting, where they had their friend dress up and scream like a goat for 10 minutes straight. What is he even hitting? Honestly, this is a vibe. Like, there's no way they don't turn off the cameras and all start laughing. And by the way, this video has about 9 million views. But why? I don't think it's that kids explicitly go searching for these videos, but rather it's the algorithm exploiting their curiosity. And that's not to say there's no fun element to getting scared. It's similar to riding a roller coaster. You get to have a contained adrenaline rush of fear that you know you will walk away safe from, if not maybe a little rattled. But you do get to keep the boasting rights to tell your friends, hey, I went on that roller coaster, or I watched this scary movie. Look how mature and edgy I am. I watched that adult stuff. Then what happens is those friends feel peer pressure to do whatever's popular, so they start watching scary stuff themselves. But the more they watch, the more desensitized they become, and they start seeking more intense forms of horror to get that same reaction. Then that's how you get these YouTube channels that pull in hundreds of millions of views. Kids aren't stupid. They realize bad things happen. Things that they get sheltered from. So I also think a big part of it is tweens finding their independence, going against their parents, and learning about the things they're not supposed to. However, I can't help but worry that their childlike sense of wonder will be short-lived. And this brings me to the last thing I want to talk about in this video. I think the worst type of scare a child can receive is getting scared so hard you lose your innocence. You straight up stop seeing the world as a joyful place. The internet can be a helpful aid in the development of kids. It is a place where people from all nationalities can share the same community. Online, there are no borders. It is easier than ever to meet people and learn all about the world. But also, it's easier than ever to meet people and learn all about the world. And I'm telling you guys, this new generation of tablet kids is just built different. These kids come out the womb, get handed a tablet, and it's like Professor X in Cerebro, experiencing the suffering of the world. Like, I always felt personally attacked by the part in Monsters Inc. where they say kids are getting harder to scare, especially because the opening to that movie had my cheeks quivering in fear. But now that I'm an adult, I can see it. Just the other day, my 11-year-old cousin told me a story that he heard about on YouTube Shorts. It was about Junko Furata's 44 Days of Hell. I'm not gonna go into the details of it, but basically a teenage girl was kidnapped, chained, kept naked, and R-word every day by more than 100 men, counting a total of 500 times. And she was also tortured in all sorts of deplorable ways that I won't get into. But the point is, a little kid told me about this story. Now, what's a kid's view on the world going to be like, knowing that stuff like this exists? I mean, the average age that people are being exposed to adult content nowadays is 12 years old. That's insane. I mean, we keep hearing about how Gen Z is mentally unstable and they keep making up disorders to justify their shortcomings. But maybe consuming this type of content as a youngling will do that to you. Is it really a surprise that Gen Z is more likely to report feeling stressed? Or that around 1 in 4 young people aged 15 to 19 meet the criteria for having a serious mental illness? I guess, if you really want to scare your kids, then throw the disharmony of the world at them. Or, in other words, give them access to the internet. But when it comes to, normal kids horror, this has been a heavily debated topic online about whether it or not is good for them. And the consensus seems to be, let them watch when they want to. If you are forcing them into scary situations, you are removing that safety net that makes it a fun experience. It's like that 4th grade math teacher who put on the Winnie the Pooh spoof movie, Honey and Blood, for his class to watch, claiming it was an honest mistake, even though he let it play for 20 minutes while the children begged for him to take it off. The environment they watch in is just as important as what they're watching. Don't scare kids for your own entertainment or overreact during the movie just to spook them. They look to adults to know what to think, and they need to know that it's not that serious. R.L. Stine himself has said that he would never write about drugs, child abuse, or even divorce. That's the kind of reality that ruins a story. It's better if the fears are less real. These stories are supposed to be fun entertainment, and all good stories hold some semblance of truth in them. And the truth is, there are people in the world who are real monsters. It's a sad truth that kids are almost instinctively aware of. And when you have your life ahead of you, knowing that they can be overcome can have a monumental effect on your psyche. The human mind is a powerful thing that we still don't fully understand. And just like dreams, we usually remember our childhood with limited memory.
Far-off memory that's like a scattered dream.
I mean, there have been reports of people having entire memories blocked out as a defense mechanism to protect themselves from traumatic events. You could have gone through something extremely messed up as a kid and not even know about it. I personally have a vivid memory of my childhood where I mistakenly stepped on a baby chicken and its guts splattered out of its belly. You don't forget something like that. It was a pretty traumatic experience. For a good while, I was convinced I was going to hell. But according to my siblings and parents, we were giving the chick sharp breadcrumbs which tore up its belly, and that's how its guts leaked out. Here's the thing though, in my memory, that's the lie I told them to cover up for my mistake. But they also claim to have seen it happen with their own eyes. So I guess I'm crazy. And that's a scary thing, for you yourself to stop becoming a reliable narrator of your own life. It makes you question everything. So, I would like to ask you, dear viewer, how do you know that your memories from your childhood actually happened? Do you have proof? Photo evidence? And if they did happen, are you sure it played out the same way you remember it? All of your childhood fears that made you who you are, that might even haunt you to this day, could potentially have been something that you just made up. But I suppose that's what makes these shows and movies so great. They give us an opportunity to relive our childhood nightmares exactly as they were, but with the added clarity of life. And it makes you realize how far you've come, how silly you were, and how important those events were to forming you. And on that note, thanks for watching. And if you're watching this on Halloween, then happy Halloween. See you guys next time.